across all time zones, covering both hemispheres. Time for another broadcast of Authors First. Tonight, we are bringing back a special guest. Been with us a couple of times before, and I'm sure he'll be with us on this particular broadcast several more times in the future. Our guest is a prolific author. Doing some research for tonight's show, I was educated on just how many books our guest has written. You know, here I thought I knew a lot about our guest because he is a radio show host along with his lovely wife. They have the broadcast, The Soul of the Everyman. And on that program, I used to introduce them, he and his wife, as the wise ones. But I was scolded about that, and I'm not allowed to do that anymore. But it was an absolutely appropriate title. Both of them are extremely wise people, not to mention ridiculously intelligent. Let's get into it here. I'm welcoming back again Michael Lynes. Hi, Michael.
Yeah, you've built me up to the point where I now have nowhere to go.
Well, we can talk about the bacon turkey.
We could about the bacon turkey. We do enjoy our times with Scott on The Soul of the Everyman. We've been doing it now. Gosh, it's coming up on 5 years. It's like
That's
forever.
That's what I was thinking. And by the way, folks, when I say bacon turkey, I'm not saying B-A-K-E, not bake turkey. It's bacon as in, you know, the food bacon, and he wraps it in a turkey. Anyway, you got to see this, and someday we got to make it over here. But well, here we go. We go.
It's worth it. It's worth it.
We are going to talk tonight about Michael's latest book. It's called Moonstones and Murder. But before we do that, as I was just doing a little research on you for tonight's show, I did not have any idea that you had as many books out as you do. We have a handful of them on the archive page, but so to date, how many books do you have out?
I think it's 30.
Wow!
But they're not all novels. There are a lot of them are short stories, and a lot of them are collaborations. Not a lot, but there's a few collaborations. And the number of genre range through a lot of genres. So I have fantasy, I have science fiction, I have ghost stories. We have nonfiction books, and I just like to write, which is, I guess, nuts, but I spent really the last 5 or 6 years writing these things, and some of them were written as collections, and then because of the way the collection worked out, I would publish them again as singles. And then there's all of them, or nearly all of them, are also audiobooks. So you can find them in multiple numbers of media. There's paperbacks and ebooks and mostly audiobooks too. So yeah, it's been fun.
Those of you listening live, we have right at the top of the homepage is a big banner for tonight's show and a copy not a copy of the book. The book cover is there, and if you click it, it will take you directly to Amazon. And once you're there on that page, start scrolling down. It'll take you a while to get to the end of the list of books.
Just buy the book, and then start scrolling down.
There you go. An even better way to look at it.
Amazon's good for that. They give you your author page, but Moonstones and Murder is my very first mystery novel, but I've always liked the genre, and this is a command performance. My mom, Marie, who, of course, like all moms, she likes what her kids do. So I could have made, like a macaroni, thing with painted glitter and stuff, and she was, oh, that was wonderful. But she said, well, I really like murder mysteries. Can't you write one of those? Because this is all very nice, but I'm not much of a science fiction fan. And I said, well, okay, Mom, for you, I'll write a murder mystery. So now I wrote one, but I'm going to write a series of them because Marie liked this one.
No stress there.
No stress there. But but I actually like the genre. I've always liked, I think many of us read, Agatha Christie or Sherlock Holmes or, like Columbo and like all these kind of, these are sort of set piece murder mysteries. And there's a genre called cozy mysteries, and I think this sort of fits into cozy mysteries. Although people have said it's a cozy, but not as cozy as some cozies, whatever that means. And it's only been out about a month, and it's already got 26 good reviews on Amazon and another 22 good reviews on Goodreads. And we had a very nice launch. We had a very good splash of a launch. So it's been picked up, and people seem to like it.
Now, do you do the traditional book appearances? Of course, with the pandemic, a lot of those went away. Maybe some are coming back. Do you do things like that? Do you like to do stuff like that?
I haven't really done I would call book appearances. I did, this is as you said, pre-pandemic. I appeared at there's a book fair that's not too far from my house in the town of Milford, Pennsylvania, and it's actually fairly famous in the sense that it's been going on for a number of years. And so a couple of years ago, I was there and I gave a talk, and 3 people attended. One of them, I think, was dead. It's fine. I mean, I think until you become better known, those things are not. They're not largely a waste of time, but it's more effective if you're going to get your name out there to kind of get online, engage with people. I find very great engagement with authors groups and with readers groups and with folks who like to review books. So a lot of that is, I guess, nowadays is online and virtual, and was really going gangbusters with the pandemic. Everyone was home, couldn't do anything, so you could talk about books all the time, and it was. I've actually seen some of that drop off with us, and thankfully getting all back out into the world a bit now, and instead of having sort of this captive audience, which is fun, having people that can't get away. What are you can do? Read this book.
Well, at the event you were describing that had 3 people show up,
one dead guy.
Did you sell any books?
I didn't sell a damn one.
Oh, man.
But
you'd figure the guilt complex would work in that small of a crowd. Come on, man, buy a book. Oh, no, man.
I think it was, it might have been a mortuary. Maybe there was an addendum of the show that actually was a mortuary home, because there was a lot of stiffs in there. No, I think it was the wrong audience, because this book fair and what I was writing at the time, which was that was when I was writing. I was in the midst of finishing up the fantasy trilogy that I wrote, which is it's The Adventures of Deucalion is the entire collected works, and it's about it's probably close to 120,000 words altogether. But the over 1 million words altogether. Each one was a couple 100,000 words, and the collected works, which is the beginning, it was a prequel novel which was called It's in the Blood. It wasn't really a novella, and then Destroyer's Blood, First Blood, and the final novel, which was Time for Blood. It was all about blood. And we talked about this one, Scott, sometime back.
I remember, yes.
But I was in the middle of that one, and I think this audience they would have been more happy about the cozy mystery. So maybe I'll go back. If they have it again, I'll bring the cozy mystery back and see if I can entice some of the people out of the mortuary to buy a book.
Yeah, well, excuse me, thank God for the cough button there.
Cough switch.
Folks, as you've probably already gathered by this early stage in the show, I'm not really good at doing this, because I kind of left out some things that I meant to bring up so that you understand the intelligence of this unique man we're speaking to tonight. Michael has a degree in electrical engineering. That means he's a computer dude, one of the smart computer dudes. He also has 4 sons and has been married for over 30 years to Margaret, the wonderful Margaret. What a couple you guys are.
Well, thank you.
Come on, if we're measuring things now in couples, You're absolutely the smartest couple I've ever met. Period.
Well,
And
that's mostly due to Margaret.
you said that, not me, but their wisdom and Margaret's wisdom and her background is
Yeah.
amazing. Folks, I encourage you to, after you're done listening to this broadcast, go to the library of archives and listen to The Soul of the Everyman. It is an amazing show. And if you don't understand anything they said, well, that's how I feel after every program.
That's not good.
I make notes. They don't make any sense to me, but I make notes. Anyway.
Oh, my God.
Well, let's touch on, just for a moment here, let's touch on your background a little bit.
Sure.
Where'd you grow up and what was your childhood like?
I grew up in Madison, New Jersey, which is a little town in northern New Jersey, and it just I was the eldest of 5 kids born in the late boomers, if you will, generation. So everyone can say "Hey, boomer" to me, and I'm reaching my 6th decade here on the planet. But it was, I think, an average childhood in the sense that we grew up completely as raised as wild wolves and not having any communications. We went out the door at the beginning of the day, and we came back when the streetlights came on, and so it was a childhood unfettered by technology. And I think I think it was better. Maybe I'll just say that I liked it. And I'm not sure that the kids today have the same experience, and maybe to their detriment. I don't know. But it was, pretty typical. I would say my mom is and was an English major, and she, would read to us all kinds of stories all the time. And she was very interested in writing, and she still is writing and is a good writer. She doesn't publish anything. That's too much trouble. And my dad was an engineer, so I guess I encapsulated in one way or another both of them in following my career in engineering, sort of emulating him, and now becoming a writer, emulating her. So now I can just say I've done it all.
Well,
but it was typical. It was a boring childhood. It was fun for me. That's about it.
Yeah, I think your comments about the years that you were growing up, they're similar to mine.
Yeah.
We had we didn't have, technology was a flashlight.
Yeah.
That was
a
high
good one.
technology.
Like one
back
with
then.
batteries that didn't burn out or something.
Yeah, and back then those Rayovacs, they didn't last very long.
No, God, they'd be like going yellow by the time you got halfway down the block. So.
Yeah, and in some ways it was much richer of a childhood. We did stuff. We did things. We went outside, enjoyed the seasons, and you growing up
lit
in
the street on fire with gasoline a couple times that the cops knew of.
Set a few fires over the years.
I'm
not admitting to any. What's the statute of limitations?
No.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think fireworks are, sort of legal. The childhood that you see in A Christmas Story, is that kind of childhood. That was in the 40s, but it was that kind of childhood where you were given dangerous things and sent out in the snow to play with them.
Yeah, that house is, we're about an hour away from the actual where they filmed that. Still a big deal.
Oh, really?
Oh, absolutely. They have tours of the house. My brother, who is now, 65, he has a leg lamp.
My mom has a leg lamp.
I swear to God, it's identical to the one in the movie. That's why he bought it, and it's in his living room.
Fragile. It's Italian. It's a major award.
Another piece of.
My mom loves that movie so much that one Christmas we got her a leg lamp, and she loved it. She still has it in the window, just like they do in the movie, which is, now we're digressing wildly, but just like they have in the movie, she has a leg lamp in the window, and it's a major award. You can't get rid of it.
You can look at my brother's house. There it is, right in the window. By the way,
electric sex.
Another connection. When Artist First was still a syndicated radio show, we used to broadcast from the Higbee building. That is, yes, on the second floor, overlooking that large I don't know what you call it, atrium, the large lobby area, which is where in the movie you were just describing where the Santa Claus is. They filmed all that right there.
Right, and you'll put your eye out, kid.
Yep. And
I know the whole movie. We could do the rest of the hour with basically quotes from A Christmas Story if you want to.
The radio station we were on at the time in Ohio, that's where we did the show from. Anyway, the Higbees.
But that's the kind of childhood we had, and now we look back at it with nostalgia because I don't think that's the childhood many kids have today, and they would say every generation looks back at the generations that come after and say, oh, you guys have it and this and that, and so we won't turn into our old man mode here, but I'll say this: we spent a lot more time interacting personally with other people and having our fights and working things out, and making an actual presence in the world rather than just doing everything online. Which I think, at the end of the day, a good balance of that, because I'm in technology. That's where I make my bread. But a good balance is fine. But too much of one or the other is not good.
And remember, folks, it's not how many times you get arrested; it's how many times you get convicted.
Convicted, right? And
that's what matters.
If you get away with it, it's fine. You're done, right?
Now, did you do? I don't know how. I'm just going to ask. Did you do kind of illegal stuff when you were a kid and get away with it?
Never.
Okay.
Never. I've never done anything illegal ever. My mom's listening. Shut up, you.
It could be something as, I don't know, buying a pack of cigarettes when you're under 18 or something. I'm just saying.
I'm not fessing up to nothing.
Well, okay, maybe we ought to. What about being a parent? Now, you have 4 sons.
What about it?
And, how did you raise them the way you were raised? Were they allowed to go out and do what they,
Absolutely. Margaret and I, we live now. We both. Margaret grew up in the city, and I grew up in the suburbs. But we moved out to the country when we got married, and so we're way out in the woods in Sussex County. We've been here really since 1985, which is a million years ago now. And so, our kids had really free and unfettered access to the Wild West of the outdoors all the time. They would go out and play, and when they got old enough, they got on their bikes or whatever contrivances they had, 4-wheelers or whatever, and they went off and went off in the country, and they were gone for hours, and they'd come back at dark. And so, I'd say that they had that kind of experience. But they grew up. My kids grew up in the 80s and 90s. And still, that was all the internet was not a big thing then, and out here we really couldn't get it, except very low-speed dial-up type internet, so it wasn't really worth anything. There weren't all these apps and crazy things. There were no cell phones, not with the ubiquity that we have today. And so, it still existed all the way through, I think, up to like the early part of the latter part of the 20th and the early part of the 21st century is when it started to, when technology really began to take hold of the kids, if you will. It was already kind of in my profession, of course, but they did. Does
artistry, what am I trying to say, or is the family line looking, you already mentioned your mother being a writer, but however she doesn't publish. What about your kids? Are they doing anything in the artistry world?
My youngest son really likes writing. I'll say it as his father, but I've read his stuff, and I've read a lot of writing, and a lot of it is just terrible. But he's actually very good. He's got a really interesting take on things. He's written again, he hasn't published, and I'm encouraging him to try and publish. He's doing a lot of what they call live-action role play. And by that I mean like the Dungeons and Dragons type games where he will host a game and he will write a whole world, and then they will, people will act out in the world because it is live action. That people gather in groups, and that's something interesting too, which we did when we were kids, and that's kind of carried on forward. But he likes writing a lot. Neither of the other Christopher passed away when he was 8. And then Ian and Devin, my other 2 sons, are not writers per se, although Devin is in technology and in the arts because he took a minor in IT, in information technology, but a major in graphic arts, and he's actually a good artist. And my eldest son is also he's another software engineer. So we're all doing all kinds of whatever they want to do is up to them. But yeah, Kaylin definitely enjoys writing.
Well, they're very blessed to have you and Margaret as their parents. Some kids aren't born into such fortunate circumstances, but and okay, let's move on to awards. You have won a bunch of awards.
Yeah,
I know. I tell you. I mean, do you have a rough count? I mean, is it? It's more.
Yeah. It's a few.
I mean, okay.
So
well,
a lot of them. I will say this. I stopped. I've kind of slowed down even entering into the contest. Not for any other reason in that just that there's a little bit of kind of running quick to do it. You have to meet a deadline. You have to do such and this. You have to jump through these hoops and whatever not. And I enjoy. I mean, the awards and having people read your stuff and think it's nice. I really enjoy it, and I recommend it to anyone who's writing that you get into some of these award things and submit your work, because a lot of them, even if you don't win, they'll give you a critique and they'll tell you what they liked and what they didn't like, and it's all good feedback. So there's a lot of them I've recommended to people over the years, but I haven't entered into any in the last year or two. I may enter Moonstones into an award or two, but I haven't yet. It's only been out a month, and I'm already working on the next one, because with a series you got to keep them going. So people are always saying, well, that took me 6 hours to read, so where's the next one? I'm thinking it takes me like a year to write these things, dude. Just slow down. But yeah, I can do. I really haven't kept a track. There's been a number of I entered a number of the novels and short stories into these awards, and it's nice. It's really nice. It's very gratifying if you win, or if you place or show, or if you just get an attaboy. That's all good.
It is. It is good, and I believe it is deserved. Now, this new book that's out, it's called Moonstones and Murder, a Maggie and Mike cozy mystery. It is book number 1 in an upcoming series. How did you? Now, your previous books, you had a series going with some of your books in the past. How do you know when that's over? And when that I've done enough with the Blood series. Now it's time to start something else. Was that just
Blood series was always planned as a trilogy. So I could pick, with any series of novels, if people like it, and you like the world that you created, you may want to write another one. So there's lots of hooks where I could write either a spin-off or a sequel or whatever. But where I left it, it has a certain character arc. So the main characters and their arc through the story, and there's several of them that are through the Blood series, the villains and the heroes and the heroines and so on. You want to, at least from my philosophy, is you want to move the character through the story, through the conflicts, and have a character arc where they show some growth, as we all do through our own lives. That's what makes characters interesting, as they reflect our own lives. So even though these are fantasy characters, I think that they have a nice sort of resolution of some conflicts and some growth in their characters, and they develop through the series. But you have to put some boundaries on things. There are these sort of endless series that go on and never seem to end. I'm not sure how many Cozy Crystal Mysteries there'll be, but I know there'll be at least maybe 3 or 4 of them, at least, maybe 5, maybe 6, I don't know. But these are shorter. They're much more focused than a fantasy, because you have a conflict. You usually have, in a murder mystery, you usually have a murder and a mystery. And so you put those two things together with a couple of nice characters and some movement of the plot. But you also want to respect the fact that these people will change and grow, and that things will come into their lives and go out of their lives. And so to the extent that right now, I don't know when the last one will be. Will is true, but I have a kind of a gut feeling about it. How many I want to do right now, and like anything, Scott, if it takes off, you do another one because people are wanting it. If it's something you say, well, now I've reached the end of this, and it's okay, and I don't feel like doing it anymore, well, you just leave it. I'll conclude it in such a way whenever I do that it will always have hooks where it can live on, because unless you do like the end of every Greek play where everyone dies, and then it's hard to write a sequel. You always have a way to move forward. Or a Shakespeare play, I guess. Everybody dies. They're all dead.
Well, it's being an author. Everybody thinks that they're an author. I could write a book, no problem. And yet no one does in reality. And only a handful of people ever even get one book out, let alone, what'd we say, 30, 20, something like that.
A lot. Too many.
You have many more books coming. Folks, if you're just tuning in, you're late. You will not get a chocolate milk at this afternoon's recess.
Aww.
And we're talking about Moonstones and Murder, the first in a series that's coming out, a Maggie and Mike cozy mystery. Okay, I have a niece. Her name is Mary Margaret, and we call her Maggie.
Yeah.
Mike's wife is named Margaret, but in the book, they call her Maggie.
Yes.
Before I knew anything about this book, besides the title, I was thinking, well, cozy crystal mysteries. I thought, well, gee, did Michael have a girlfriend named Crystal when he grew up? And I thought, that's probably not it, because a crystal isn't cozy. I mean, it's a hard gem, Anyway, then I thought, oh, they had the gem store. Yeah. And then as I began to look into this, hey, I was pretty much right on the mark on a lot of that. All right, so for the benefit of our listeners, please give us the synopsis, and as much as you feel comfortable, setting up what the book is for the listeners.
Well, the synopsis would be that Maggie and Mike are the owners, or rather Maggie's the owner of the Cozy Crystal, which is a rock and gem store. And we do have, eponymously, we have some background. Margaret has some background in that. So they always say, write what you know. So I fold some of that knowledge into this. But these two people, besides the names, have very little actual relationship to real persons that I do know. The book is set in the town of Hamilton. And in fact, it takes place, at least the beginning of the book, takes place at the Springfield Park Rock and Gem Show, which is a perennial favorite or perennially held in the town of Hamilton. Hamilton itself is a town which was famous for mining, and the Blue Bark tourmaline mine was the foundation of Hamilton's success way back in the 1800s. And the founder of Hamilton itself was Elias Barkin. And Elias Barkin, who's the sort of the patriarch of the Barkin clan, discovered the Blue Bark tourmaline mine. The town kind of grew up around it. This is way back, in the latter part of the 19th century, and the fame of the town and everything about it kind of grew up around this legendary mine. Elias Barkin, when he was mining these tourmalines, everyone was struck by the color of them. They were this deep, brilliant blue, which some tourmalines are. It's rare, but some tourmalines are. So they started to call it Blue Bark tourmaline. And Elias loved the name so much that he changed his name from Barkin to Blaubark. And so the premier family of the town of Hamilton are the Blaubarks. They have the giant mansion up on the hill overlooking the lake, and all around the lake are these resorts. And the resorts are converted old Victorian homes, and they're owned by various folks in the community, and they're rented out. It's a big, like, resort town kind of thing. That's what Hamilton is. And Maggie and her store and many other shopkeepers in the center of town of Hamilton are basically those who service the tourist crowd during the season, And there's, of course, the spring show, the fall show, the Christmas season. But you're shopkeepers. You have stuff coming in. But the big show, the big spring show, which is held right before Memorial Day, the Springfield Park Show, is what everybody looks forward to. But the MacGuffin of this whole thing is that the mayor, Stan Stoney Blaubark, that's his nickname. Now we're in the present day. He's the great grandson, I believe, of Elias. Has suddenly died, and his daughter, who had been away from town for many, many years, over 20 years, comes back for the funeral. And they think, well, this is interesting, that she's coming back, but she'll probably come back and do whatever needs to be done, and there doesn't seem to be anything to keep her into town. She'll just go back out west. And instead, she decides to stay on and become the mayor, and she runs and becomes the new mayor of town, and she starts changing things, and all the shopkeepers are up in arms about that, and there's a bit of a conflict there and a history there between her, Mike, and Maggie from their childhood and school days that we get into a little bit. The MacGuffin of the story, though, is that at the show, which everybody looks forward to and is kind of getting changed around, and we don't know why, it's announced that this is going to be the last Springfield Park Rock and Gem show, and that the park has been sold, and the mayor has actually sold it to this developer, whose name is Jeffrey Bland, and he's coming in to reform and retransform the town along with the mayor's help, and they're going to move it in a whole different direction. So everybody's up in arms about that. But right at that announcement, and while all that is going down and everyone's getting very excited about it, one of Maggie's friends and one of the other premier shop owners in Hamilton, Leonard Engelman, who owns the Spit and Polish, is stabbed and appears right in the middle of the mayor's announcement, walking on stage, bleeding profusely, collapses on the stage, and we start our novel off in earnest. So there's a lot of good background. There's a lot of of nice plot movement, I think. And I think it's an interesting setup. And we start, Maggie is a shopkeeper and so on, but her husband was the chief of police. And when the new mayor came in, she fired him. And she brought in her own new chief. And her new chief is a young guy named Tate. And he is, he has it in, Mike thinks he's too young for the job and that he doesn't really know how to be a cop. And so there's some conflict there. And when all this goes down, Mike and Maggie are very concerned about their friend. They want to figure out what's going on, and of course Tate is pushing them back. So there's it's a nice setup, I think. A lot of nice little characters, little character interaction, and from then on the mystery just gets deeper.
and your characters, Mike and Maggie, are we like in their 50s and their 60s?
Yeah, well, I would say they're probably in their. They have a pair of sons, twin sons, that were their sons are both grown and they've moved out, but they're not very old. They're not married or anything, so they're probably in their middle to late 20s. And the two of them are now empty nesters, but they're young empty nesters. They married young, and they had their kids young, so they're probably in their middle 50s or something of that nature. I don't really give specific ages to anybody because I like people to kind of identify and think, well, he could be my age or maybe a little bit older, a little bit younger. But the twin sons are certainly just out of college and pursuing their careers. They're both out of state right now, but they come into the novel a little bit for helping and for a little bit of an interaction there. The milieu, if you will, is ordinary in the sense that you can identify, unlike a fantasy where you have to build this whole world. The world that we're in is the modern day world, cell phones and regular cars, but you have ties back to history because you have all these Victorian novels and things that go back into the 19th century, and then there's sort of the whole mystique of the town, how it all was built up from the mining town and what we have there. So there's a sort of a slice of life kind of feel to the whole thing, but yet you throw in, a couple of bodies and a mystery, and it becomes interesting.
Well, folks, again, if you're just joining us, that's Michael Lynes. He's the author of about 1 billion books. This is his latest effort, which I'm sure is an outstanding effort. Moonstones and Murder, a Maggie and Mike cozy mystery, book number 1 in the upcoming series. Now, I had to look up what moonstones are, and that's it.
Oh.
I don't have quite a background in gemology, if that's even a term. Listeners, well, you'd be better at explaining the properties of the gem moonstones.
Yeah, a moonstone is a type of feldspar, and it's a gem. When it's a gemstone, it's polished and it's sort of semi-translucent. And there's a variety of different types of if you will, moonstones, what people call moonstones. There's something called rainbow moonstone, which has a bit of the light that's reflected out of it can be different colors, of sort of rainbow colors. Then there's the sort of typical moonstone, which is white or milky white, but it has a sort of a cat's eye. They call it a chantoyance. There's kind of light moving through it if you kind of rotate it back and forth. So those are the moonstones that people have seen. There's pink moonstone. There's something called labradorite, which is a type of moonstone which is very bright green or sometimes green-blue. So they're gemmy, sort of semi-precious stones, and that you see them a lot in in necklaces or in rings or in other types of jewelry. If you go on Shop Anything, HSN or any of these things, you'll find plenty of people selling moonstones. So they're popular. They've got people like them from the point of view of just they're sort of flashy and nice. And in this particular case, though, this mine is tourmaline. So the moonstones are sort of like where the moonstones come in.
And moonstones have I don't know, it's a word, reputation for being a healing stone. You having had a gem store and knowing about these things, do you put any credence into that?
Well, certainly there are a number of different modalities, and Margaret would be the one that could explain these better. People use them for healing and for energy work and for moonstones, and there is certainly some credence given to the energy. Certainly, there are certain stones which are already known by science to have electromagnetic effects, and these effects on your body are various and certainly can be felt. Quartz is a big one that people talk about, and quartz, as if anyone's familiar with piezoelectrics is basically quartz crystals that you apply pressure to, and they produce an electric field. So there's lots of that. There are many different electromagnetic effects of various crystals. And then you have the light, the properties of light. So when you're looking through various crystals, you have birefringence, you have refractance, you have chantoyance, and all these different terms. But really, they're all talking about how light interacts with the crystal. And so there's a lot of, I give credence to it all from the point of view of if it works and it makes you feel better, go to it. Moonstones, have also existed through many, many different cultures, and they've been used for, symbolically in various ceremonies to actually represent the moon or to represent the unconsciousness. And there's crystals fascinate us all because there is a beautiful connection back to nature. They have all these amazing forms. They do all these amazing things with lights and throwing rainbows and so on. So if you want to fascinate kids, take them to a rock and gem store. And when we had our store for the dozen years or so that we had it, the best customers were kids or people who would bring in their kids because they would just love it to death, and we would love explaining it to them.
And if you think, listeners, some of that is just a bunch of hooey, I would disagree with you. Number one, the piezoelectric charge has been approved by the FDA, 30 years ago, maybe?
Oh, more than that.
As a pain relief device.
Yep.
Yeah, and I got to actually interview the guy that invented that.
Really?
Yeah, way back. And I'll tell you off the air, yeah, it was a problem. Anyway, it involved a lawsuit of somebody that we knew, that we had an acquaintance with, who was trying to steal the technology. I think he had to pay back, was it $400 million? Anyway, not the guy that invented it, the guy that copied it. Anyway. But I had a nice conversation with the gentleman that invented it. And of course, anybody that's a musician know that piezo, in all the speakers, all the horns, it's very a big deal. It's real, and it can actually heal people, and people get relief from the piezoelectric devices that are on the market, approved by the FDA.
Right, and there's many similar effects with many other different types of crystals. So, hey, like I said, I give it credence as you do, and there are scientific studies to back it up, but you don't even need that. Just go with what makes you feel good, and don't worry about the scientific studies.
Have you ever wanted to be a police officer?
No, that was. And it's funny because both my grandfather and his father were policemen. My grandfather was he served in the U.S. Army in 1870 something or other, and then when he got out of the Army, no, it was later. It was 1890s. Yeah, when he got out of the Army, he just missed getting into World War I because he was just a little too old. And then after the war, he became a cop, and he was a cop in Elizabeth, New Jersey, until he died. And so there is that the stigma, the Irish cop, right? Because he was Irish from Ireland. My dad, of my uncles, none of them became cops, but a lot of them were in the service. And my dad was too young; he was the youngest, so he missed the service. He missed all, the draft. He missed all that stuff just because just happened to miss it all. And when I was a kid, I didn't want to be a cop. I wanted to be a fireman for the longest time. But I never wanted to be a cop. But yeah, it is sort of an Irish thing.
Having been a cop for 9 months when I was in college.
That's right, you were a cop.
Yeah, and I have the deepest respect for police officers, but I've been there, done that, ain't doing that anymore. Not a fun job at all. Nothing but respect for the people that do that. But, well, what do you want to... I guess I should ask this question first. Was there a target audience, an age group, or something along the lines that you were aiming for when you wrote this?
Oh, well, for Moonstones, I would say the target audience is variable, but certainly, you're looking at people who like mysteries, and cozies are less gory and usually more approachable from the point of view of, you're not going to run into a lot of language or a lot of adult situations in the sense of, a lot of sex or a lot of violence. But you want to mix in enough intrigue, some humor, a little bit of romance, but you keep it, pretty much not clean, but it doesn't devolve into something that would offend anybody, mostly for the most part. And so you're looking at that audience, and then as far as age groups, I think this could be read from anybody from the fourth grade or so, fifth grade on up to your 90s or whatever, however old you want to go, because it's got something for everyone from that point of view. From the characters themselves are all somewhat mature adults in their everywhere. The age range in the book is from the youngest character is probably in their their 20s, and the oldest character is maybe in her 70s or something of that nature. So the people are people you meet every day, right? So it's an ordinary people kind of thing. There isn't that is very broad, is what I'm really trying to say.
Well, congratulations for leaving out the horrific violence, the mounds of needless sex, some things that
yes.
show some. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you watch television, you listen to. It's just like come on. You know,
Yeah.
Is there another word you can use? Is there another topic you can talk about? I'm just saying, congratulations for not falling into that. Well, it'll sell more books. Well, so what?
Well, if you remember Louis L'Amour, who wrote all those westerns, and one of the things he said was that if you can't write your story without using profanity, then you're not much of a writer. And if you can't, basically describe situations and not have people, basically falling into bed every 10 seconds, you're not much of a writer. You have to show life as interesting, but yet don't make it so that your only appeal is that you're titillating people, and that it's sort of a peep show, if you will. Now, there's a place for that, and people love that, and that belongs in fiction. I would never do anything but say go to it if you want to do it. That's not the fiction I want to write. So I write what I want to write.
Good for you.
And people write what they want to write, and there's room for everybody. If you want to find an audience that's looking for that, more power to you, and I hope you make $1 million. I hope I make $1 million doing what I'm doing. But it comes down to expression for all, and then write what you want to write. And if you write well, my opinion is you'll find an audience, because people are looking for good stories. That's all they really want, is a good story. And the other stuff wears thin after a while, in my opinion.
Well, congratulations on keeping your art form done in a classy manner. When you're amidst writing a book like this, are you thinking ahead? You're writing a scene for Moonstone, and you're thinking, hey, I'm going to do this in book number 2, or I'm going to push that into book number 3. Are those thoughts going through your mind?
Sometimes I am. There's the way they describe writers is that you can be a plotter or a pantser. And the terms are that you kind of plot everything out, and you know where the story's going, you know where this is going to happen in chapter 7 or whatever. And then there's the pantsers, who basically just start writing, seat of your pants. I'm somewhere in the middle there. I would say more. I like spontaneity in writing, so I don't plot things out to the nth degree, but I have to have a spine. I have to have a kind of a. So what I do is I would technically term it as sort of an outline, but it's less outline to me and more kind of the points of what I want to do in every chapter. So what I'll normally start with is I'll write all the chapter names out, and if I don't know them, I'll just put a placeholder in there. So I have already started, as I mentioned, the second in this series, and I have all the chapter names written out. So it gives me, the chapter names give me where the story's going in my mind, even if it may not make sense to a reader of the chapter names. To me, I know what I'm aiming at, so it gives me something to hang my thoughts off of. But then each scene, I like to visualize the scene and play it out in my head, and then write down what I'm playing out in my head, because you have to, and a lot of writers will tell you this, you have to speak the dialogue yourself, either in your head or out loud, because otherwise it comes out sounding incorrect. You have to put yourself in a little bit of acting. You put yourself into the character you're writing, and then you speak as though you were that character to some other character. So that gives it some veracity. You say, well, Len Engelman wouldn't say that way. He would say it this way, because you know who he is. You have in your mind what this person is like. So that, in some ways, helps to draw from life, but you don't, in my opinion, want to just copy someone you know, because, number one, they may not like it, but number two, you really, you constrain yourself. You have to kind of say, well, he's kind of like this guy, but not, and he's kind of like that guy, but not. Well, put the two guys together and just see what all comes out. So it is important to have when you're writing, my opinion, a guidepost where you want to get to, because that way you're not wandering around just aimlessly bumping into things. But then I've had this happen many, many times over all the things I've ever written. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, a minor character will just pop in, literally just step into the scene and say, here I am, I'm here to deliver bagels. And sometimes those minor characters who came in just out of nowhere to deliver a bagel become real characters and continue on and become a major character later on in the book. And that's happened several times. It happened in this one, in this particular novel. The mother of one of the characters just popped into my head. So, well, and then here she is, here's her name. And all of a sudden I said, well, this is the perfect vehicle for this part of the plot. So I just wrote her into it. And she's a recurring and I would say a stable character, not a main character, but somebody who needs to be there, fulfills a purpose, but yet also adds some life and some veracity. Because people come into your life randomly. You just like meet the lady behind the counter and you have a conversation and you learn something and you go, wow, that was kind of cool. So that, to me, adds some life to the book.
With the explosion of streaming services, the television and movie business is severely hurting for material. There is a clamor to find great stories and make them into shows to fill the many channels they don't have any content for. Have you thought about this? Congratulations to Ron Chepsick, host of Crime Beat on this network. He got his 5th movie deal last week.
Oh,
I know.
Nice.
It's fantastic. What do you think? Is there an audience? Do you think this could be made into a movie series?
Absolutely. Let's talk money. I have no idea. I would love it. I mean, there certainly, some of the other novels would lend themselves to that. Christopher's story would lend itself to a movie adaptation. Certainly, the Destroyer's Blood, the Adventures of Deucalion is ready for. People have said to me this would make a wonderful, fantasy movie or movies. That'd be great. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how one does that exactly.
Yeah, I don't
maybe
either.
Ron Chepsick can help us do that. But I think that what I write is cinematic. It's been described as cinematic because I do write scene, and I give a lot of contextual scene to every chapter. So you could easily take this and turn it into a screenplay, and make it into something like that. But I don't know how to do it. So right now I'm writing the books, and if someone out there listening says, hey, this would make a great TV or let's do it, because I would love to do that. And I think certainly there's I like the characters I've created, and I know people do like the characters I've created. They're real enough people that they could be played by an actual person, and they'd find a lot of freedom in the role.
Well, folks, if you're an aspiring cinematographer and you're looking for great stories, I strongly suggest you get a hold of Michael. Michael, I believe there's links to you on your webpage for your radio program. How else would you? Is there an email address you're comfortable about giving out if someone would like to contact you?
Sure. Well, yeah. They can certainly go onto my website, which is let's see if I can give you the exact thing here. And then there's a contact me form right there on the website. But let me give you there it is. So it's Mike Lynes, MikeLynes .wixsite. That's WIXSITE.com. So MikeLynes.wixsite.com, and it's MLyons Author is the website. And it has most of my novels. Actually, I don't even have Moonstones on there. I have to update the website. It's been a month, so it's time to put that up. And there's the About Me, and there's the click to follow me on BookBub, and contact us, and all the other good stuff. And those pictures are when I was a lot fatter, so it's a fatter me, but it doesn't matter. I'm still the same me.
I'll tell you what, and I'm being 100% honest, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Lynes is one of the most brilliant minds I've come across. He is... And I wish they would let me reintroduce them on his show as the wise ones. He's also humble.
Not happening.
And every time I interview him for a book like this, yes, I am intimidated before the show starts. I feel more comfortable as we go along. But, and the two of them make a wonderful couple, a wonderful radio show, and they're very, very creative like Michael is. Michael, how many more stories you got in you?
I don't know. A lot.
Billions.
I'm gonna just keep on writing until I keel over.
And when you're doing something like this, and you're working on, whatever this is, book 31 or something, I imagine you don't just focus on this like a laser beam and then it's over and you move on. I mean, I imagine a mind like yours, of course, I really can't imagine a mind like yours if you evaluate my mind. But, are you keeping several irons in the fire mentally about other projects you want to work on?
Oh, yeah. I literally have a folder with probably another 30 beginnings of stories that I sometimes will go back and look at. Well, I should write this one, and it really is just a dearth of time. You have to be in a target-rich environment. You have to select one, and that's why Marie kind of pushed me over the edge and said, "Well, I want this one to be." That's all right, Mom. I'll write it for you. So I'm going to write a few of them, in essence, because I'm doing it for me too. But I do want to, pursue this for a little while and do murders. But I may do in the interim, like I'm writing something and then someone will come to me and say, I really need a short story for XYZ anthology. Can you do it? I'll take a break for a week or two and write a short story because I love writing short stories. So that happens too. We'll see. We'll see where it all goes.
Is there an idea you've had in your mind for quite a while that someday I'm going to write that book? Is there
I have a couple
book?
of good ones. Well, I'd like to write an actual, let's say, literary novel. Like a complete, just the Buzzkill of Saigon or something. I don't know. Just pick a name and just go for it. Just a novel about nothing, and make it about 500 pages and just in completely impenetrable prose and something that like Faulkner would write, and then just put it out there. So yeah, here you go. Chew on this. But that takes a very long time to do, and it could be fun. You never know. Sometimes literary novels just take off, and sometimes they're just paperweights. But I'd like to do that. If I ever retire from what I'm doing now, which I probably never will, and I certainly will. Continue in the genre fiction, which is science fiction and ghost stories and short stories and all those things, because genre fiction is fun to write. You have to kind of stay within a certain lane of what you're trying to write about, but it is fun. And then I do like nonfiction. I've told you this. Margaret and I both want to compile the best of the soul of the everyman and publish it as a nonfiction. But it takes such time to do. But it would be fun to do that. So it really is, again, target-rich environment, hard to pick and dedicate the time to it, because it takes time. It just takes a lot of time.
Yeah, that was my final question for you, because number one, we've run out of time. We're going to go over a minute or two here, but
that's good.
My son is also a software engineer, and I know that he works very, very hard. And if things are a little screwed up with the software, or they're trying to implement an update or something, sometimes he's gone to work and stayed there for 4 straight days.
Yeah.
Because they got to get it done. So, and I'm not saying that's your life, but I know a little bit about what it's like to be a software engineer. It's very time consuming, and it's not something you can just do, on the side. It's something you have to focus your attention on. And so, where's the rest of the time come for all these works that you're doing?
Well, it's very true, and I kind of have to bars up my time. Like this novel that I'm beginning, I'm 3,000 or so words into it, but it's taken me a while. I have the ideas and I have it all down there, but I need to have time to work on it. So I'll work on a weekend or something, and I'll try to put down, on a good weekend, I'll get a couple thousand words down. Usually I try to write something every day, but that's difficult sometimes when it's a busy day and you're just exhausted at the end of the day. But I try to keep at it steadily and work at it steadily, which is why it takes more calendar time. If you really sat down and pounded on the keyboard for relentlessly, you could probably write a whole novel in a month or a month and a half. But that month and a half takes me 6, 8, 10 months because I spread it out over that time, stealing a few hours here and a few hours there. So yeah, that's part of it. It's a part-time kind of thing. And to write a novel, you really have to get into it too. You can't just sit down and write a scene. You have to get back into it. You have to read what you wrote before, so you kind of put yourself back in context.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can't emphasize enough, you need to listen to Michael's radio program called The Soul of the Everyman with his lovely wife, Margaret. And he has 20, or I'm sorry, I think it's 30. Would this be 31? Or
this was number 30. The one that we just published was number 30.
30 books out there, folks, that are all worth reading. The one we've been discussing tonight is Moonstones and Murder, the Maggie and Mike Cozy Mysteries. Book number 1. We'll have Michael back on when books number 2 and 3 come out. And well, Michael agreed to come back on, having been on with me before, which is pretty amazing in my estimation.
Yeah. We're on with you all the time.
Which is pretty amazing, yeah, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Margaret makes him do it. But folks, truly, brilliant minds. You are a brilliant mind, Michael, and I'm very pleased to spend time with you and to loosely call you a friend. You're a wonderful man.
Oh yeah, we love you, Scott. We have a great time with Scott's our producer, and we love interacting. The breaks are the best part of the show. The unaired part of the show is the best part.
Yeah, we didn't get to talk about Margaret trying to outsmart the bear that's been stealing your bird food.
Yeah,
it's
a lot of stories.
Great stuff.
We'll get into the next novel.
Yeah, there you go. He's always thinking ahead. Well, folks, the books are available at Amazon. Is that the main place
all over?
You want to send
Amazon,
people?
Kobo, everywhere. I mean, if you go, if you go to Amazon, that's a fine venue, but you can find it on Kobo, Apple, Google. It's widely distributed. It's also in libraries. So if you don't want to buy it, you can borrow it. All my books are out there, so you can find them all over the place. Just search for me.
And folks, he's easy to find. He's one of the best shows
I'm easy to find
on this network, and we're so glad to have him. Well, folks, we are out of time. We apologize to the Urantia listeners. We've gone over a few minutes, and we'll be getting to that show in about 2 minutes. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Well, Michael, thanks again for coming back on, and onward and upward. Boy, it's a pleasure to know you and follow your career and spend time with such a creative and brilliant mind.
Well, we have fun with you too, Scott. And we love being on the Artist First Radio, and the Soul of Every Man is a fun show to do.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for this installment of Authors First. The book is on the homepage. If it's not anymore and you're listening to this as an archive, just click the links next to the archive links, and we will help you find this book so you can own it for yourself. Michael, give a hug to Margaret, and thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, will do.